Hi, everybody. So welcome to class. This is one of the last classes on we're doing here on Essence True Eloquence before we move on to something else. And so thank you for coming. And we're just sort of finishing up our discussion here on Tsongkhapa's understand kind of the title of the course being like in the ACI course is what the Buddha really taught or what he really meant. And this, as we'll see, sort of the conclusion we want to get to is what do we take, sort of what's the difference between what's figurative and what's literal in Buddha's teaching. So basically, in other words, if you've got all these teachings, how do I know which ones to believe, or how do I get the key on knowing which ones, again, should be taken literally and which one should be taken, again, figuratively, metaphorically, or symbolically, or whatever. And that's, of course, the question you always run at when you're interpreting anything, particularly with, let's say, religious texts or spiritual traditions. I remember maybe about 20 years ago, during the sort of Iraq war and all the sort of American colonial wars, so to speak, there was always this big thing where everyone was discussing and arguing over Islam and Christianity and this and that. This guy ended up being, I read the book review and the interview, the guy wrote a book, I think it was called A Year of Living But Biblically. So what the guy tried to do, he was, sort of young, kind of hipster kind of guy or whatever. I don't think he was religious. He might have been secular. So what he tried to do is he went around kind of like this kind of like prophet guy, almost like a performance artist. And he tried to follow the entire Bible, Old and New Testament, literally, and see what it would do for him. And so I didn't read the books you have to see. And so the whole point he wanted to show really was that you couldn't do it, that if you followed everything literally from the Bible, it was so full of paradoxes and self-contradictions and inconsistencies, you wouldn't be able to pull it off, obviously, right? Which is why you have every priest and rabbi spending years in seminary studying on how to interpret things. But what he said, what was interesting is that he said that it completely changes life in a positive way by trying to live things literally, because it forced him to do this kind of work of understanding what's literal and what's figurative. And so he had a huge religious experience by doing it. But, they had things where he dressed how people would have dressed, let's say in the Middle East at the time of Jesus, right? So he wore robes like that. They had, I shouldn't make light of it, but they had a thing where, as in the Old Testament, one of the laws that if someone is guilty of adultery, you have to stone them. So if he heard anybody having an affair, he had little pebbles in his pocket that he would throw and hit the person with, right? So, like, in other words, to keep the law, right? And so it's just very interesting to have to do that. So one of the reasons I like this text, and by no means am I a scholar in any respect, is it's forcing you to do sort of the greatest thing you can do with religion, greatest thing you can do even with Buddhism, is be forced to sort of engage with with this work of doing interpretation. This is always a huge thing you have to do in Semitic religions, is you're studying the Torah and the Talmud. Like, what did God mean with these laws? These laws that don't make sense. How do we apply them? Are they still relevant for today? What do they mean by this? What's the exception? This and that. Same thing with Islam. You have to take everything literally in the Quran, but then the Hadith, there's all sorts of contradictions and paradoxes there too. So how is a mullah, how do you apply this? And it's the same thing with Essence of True Eloquence. Tsongkhapa is saying, out of all these teachings in different traditions of Buddhism, and he's only really looking at just sort of the Indian schools, the stuff that's come over from Tibet. He's not discussing, obviously, Zen or Pure Land Buddhism or Japanese Tantric Shingon Buddhism, or he's just looking at stuff within Tibet. And he says, even in our context here, there's so many different ways of looking at things. And in particular, you've got the two big schools from the two greatest Buddhist saints, Sangha and Nagarjuna. And one's giving you more of a positive philosophy, one's giving you a negative philosophy. How do you know which one's right? Like, at the end of the day, when you're giving all these teachings from Buddha and all this stuff, how do we know how to apply which one's right? Which view of emptiness is correct? So we'll see kind of at the end of the course what the conclusion is, what we can sort of see kind of where it's going to. And, this is sort of the key to Tsongkhapa's philosophy. And the point is, at the end of it, what you'll want to do is go to his texts, the Lamrim Chenmo and Narim Chenmo, to see how they fit together to get enlightened in one lifetime through Tantra. That's kind of the main purpose here. It's not to sort of be a philosopher and sort of get into big debates with people. In the end, you will return to his other work, his more therapeutic and prescriptive work, and you know exactly why you're doing it and what you have to do once you get the key to this particular text. Okay, so let's start with the Heart Sutra here. That was my little diatribe. Sorry for taking long with that. Okay. And opening it up right now. Homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiri, and mass vultures bound together the great assembly of monks and nuns and the great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage with the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty as having no characteristics, not producing, do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing under beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest complete Buddhas in state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and the unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection and wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam gata gata paragata parasam gati bodhisoha. Shariputra, a bodhisattva, a great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of the lineage, it's like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed in that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and Tathagata will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so let's just start our meditation here. We can just get comfortable. We're seated here. And we'll start with our opening prayers for Gyan and Lagema, which is auspicious for this text by Tsongkhapa. Okay, so to change my reading glasses. Let's take a moment again to visualize ourselves in a wide open space. So it's almost like a little video game where you start and your little character appears. It's you on a wide open plain around like lapis lazuli. And I remember reading descriptions once. It's all sort of beautiful inlet rings of gold on the ground. Sort of symbols of emptiness. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings. So everyone around us being sort of the closest people in our own little mandala here. So our mother's on our left, father's on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and people we have issues with or like the least in front of us as objects of our prayers, healing, and compassion. Now moving out, serving in centric circles from there, we have people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, countries and cultures and so forth, none without exception. And again, in front of us, we can think of all the conflict zones, all the wars and genocides and environmental disasters and people suffering a great deal. We can really sort of feel that they're here with us, and really that everything we're doing today together is to sort of stop these kinds of things from happening, creating a world, a selfless world where these things don't happen. So it's like creating a medicine for these things. And moving up from there, all sort of natural things in the animal realm, sort of ecological realm, I guess you could say, just all animals and insects, very small and very large. In a similar way, the whole spirit world, which is just as varied as the natural world, is here as well. So all the spirit beings from the ethereal, astral, and elemental planes are here. Celestial beings, gods and demigods from their different realms. So it's a lot. If you send a little drone up in the sky and it starts looking, it's just like a huge continent, really, of all these different sentient beings with us meditating. And then we can feel the greatest numbers are beings in lower states of rebirth, hell and hungry ghost realm beings. And they're here with us as well. So now we sort of bring our eyes upwards in our mind here, looking up at the sky in front of us, and just like a huge moon coming closer to us, we can feel we're interfacing here. It's just like a gigantic planet coming at us, just getting a vision of Tashita Pure Land, Gandhin Pure Land, and of all the universal Buddhas, and Manjushri Buddha of Wisdom's Pure Land. And it's an absolutely beautiful Pure Land with mountains and rivers and lakes and forests, fields and so forth. Everything is an expression of the Buddha's mind, manifestation of Buddha's mind. So everything is a teaching of Dharma, and everything is pure, faultless, blissful, joyful, and beautiful. And the center where we're looking is like a little university town, with all temples and so forth. And in it are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, gods, goddesses, monks, nuns, yogis, yoginis, everybody here practicing, meditating, studying. In the central cathedral, huge temple there, doors are open, we can see in, is the future Buddha, fifth universal Buddha, Maitreya, Buddha of loving kindness. And he's got a golden energy body seated on a throne, wearing beautiful sort of robes, so forth. Has a crown on and holding two white lotuses in the turning wheel of Dharma Mudra at his heart. And one is a golden eight-spoked Dharma chakra, and the other golden initiation pause. Again, this is showing that he will be sort of anointed by all the different holy beings and then sent with his little, figuratively, this little symbol of the Dharma chakra, or Dharma wheel, to teach the new form of Buddhism that's coming into the world soon. Then on our left, or his right, is the founder of the Old Kadampa tradition of Buddhism, sort of the second wave Buddhism in Tibet in the 11th century, Tisha Dipampara Vijnana. So he's beautiful Bengali monk, Indian monk, in lotus position, again with the turning wheel of Dharma Mudra, and wearing 3 robes of monk and a yellow pen in his hat. He's got a little Dharma text and a stupa in front of him. And on the other side is founder of the new Kadampa tradition, sort of carrying on the legacy of the old Kadampa tradition here. So it's Je Tsongkhapa, founder of our Gelugpa lineage. And he's the way we usually see him, in lotus position, 3 robes of a monk, yellow pen in his hat. He's got the turn the wheel of Dharma Mudra at his heart, holding 2 white lotuses, which have a flaming sword and Dharma text, Prajnaparamita text. So it feels just like from Maitreya, from the Buddhas, come these 2 wonderful saints that have given us the whole Kadam lineage that leads right up to the present day with what we're meditating on now. So now at Maitreya's heart, we see sort of a symbol, almost like on reflection in the water, of a golden eternal knot, and then that suddenly transforms, just like when you're opening one of those cans of whipped cream and you press it down, it makes all the whipped cream come out. Beautiful, fluffy white clouds are appearing at his heart. on top of them, again, is Je Tsongkhapa, this time with his two heart students, who are all on lion thrones, multicolored lotuses, sun and moon cushions. And again, they're in lotus position. He's in the form we see holding the two lotuses with the turn of the wheel of mudra, the Dharma mudra. And the other two students, one on our left or his right is Shapa Gyatso, and on our right or his left at Kidripche. And they've got the teaching mudra at the right hand at their heart there, index finger touching the thumb, and they have a little Dharma text in their lap. So this time let's visualize also at Je Tsongkhapa's heart, we can visualize the Buddha of Wisdom, Manjushri. And he's again on a moon disc here, and he's in lotus position, beautiful golden energy body with a crown. Again, he's got the three jewels mudra at his, with his left hand, his heart, holding a white lotus that has the Prajnaparamita text. And threatening mudra is holding in his right hand a flaming sword, two-edged sword above his head. If you want, you can visualize the seed syllable in gold, or sort of orangey gold at his heart, D-D-H-I. Okay, so taking refuge just from our hearts here. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. So just take a moment to generate refuge in the three jewels, but in particular in the Dharma jewel, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the whole point of meditating and practicing in Buddhist religion. So really taking refuge in that is the ultimate protection or medicine for all of our troubles and sufferings for us and others. And then taking, again, another moment to generate bodhicitta, the awakening mind, that because of this refuge and what we're taking refuge in, we are going to become this refuge by us doing everything we can to get enlightened and realize emptiness and be emptiness, so to speak. We can be this refuge to everybody else and help them be a refuge to themselves. And then they can be a refuge for everybody else. So everything we're doing right now, today, from now on, is done from this intention. Okay, cultivating four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free from suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. In practice, from the hearts of protector, the hundreds of deities of the joyful land, to the peak of a cloud which is like a cluster of fresh white curd, all-knowing Losangdrapa, king of the Dharma, please come to this place together with your two chief disciples. In the space before me in the lion throne, lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit from a mind of faith, please remain for 100 days to spread the teachings. So as we recite that as an invocation, we can just feel that the clouds start coming closer to us with Je Tsongkhapa and his two students. Like I say, like unrolling a carpet or a yoga mat. So we look up now, they're right in front of us and above us here. And we can, so if you sort of crank your neck a little bit and see behind them, you see that long sort of train of clouds going right to Maitreya's heart, like a little bridge. So always keeping this in mind in our heart, this is kind of like the rainbow bridge to Valhalla. Like even when we die, we can just feel about sort of following these clouds back into Maitreya's heart and going to Tashita Pure Land. Right now we can just look in front of us here, Je Tsongkhapa and his two students. Very beautiful. And they're going to bless us with their energy here as we finish the 7-limb prayer. Excuse me. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear organ of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are ablaze with the glory of renown. I prostrate to you whom to see, to hear, and to remember so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light, scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings both set out and imagined, and offer to you, Supreme Field of Merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind have accumulated since time without beginning, especially transgressions of my 3 levels of vows. With great remorse I declare each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age you sow for much learning and accomplishment. Abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, you made your leisure and endowment meaningful. Protector, from the very depths of my heart, I rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. From the veiling clouds of wisdom and compassion, in the space of your enlightened minds, venerable holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma appropriate to disciples of this world. May your Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free the rising and setting of cyclic existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only as unsubtle physical form, stand unchanging without waiting until samsara ends. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit, and especially may the essence of the teachings of Lama Je Tsongkhapa shine forever. So holding a beautiful purified universe, the mandala at our hearts, let's again make this big offering, opening our hearts here to the merit field. This mandala is built on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, and incense. Adorned with Mount Mirror, the 4 lands, sun and full moon, by offering this pure mandala to you, assembly Buddhas here before me. May all living beings receive pure happiness and be reborn in the pure lands. We send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious gurus, Manam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamyartiyami. So sending all this beauty up to Je Tsongkhapa and his 2 students in Maitreya. We're making a sort of circle of giving here. Sort of circle of reciprocity between us and the spirit world, opening our hearts. And now, just as an offering, we receive the blessing back from them. Sort of the circle turns and comes back to us. We can just feel from the hearts of all the Buddhas here, and even just from Tashita Pure Land, it's almost like a big sun now. Golden energies coming down, golden lights. And we can also just feel, just like into our body soon, the different kinds of wisdoms are coming down as well. Quick wisdom, clear wisdom, great wisdom, wisdom for debating, writing Dharma texts and teaching. So these are coming down, little tiny symbols made out of energy, like almost like little plasma bits. We can just feel there's little Buddhas coming down, like Maitreyas and Manjushris, Manjushri mantra, Murapatsana D syllable DHI, little flaming swords, Dharma texts, wheels of swords, almost as little ninja stars coming down, and dissolving into all the sentient beings around us here. So it's in, sort of Western cult here, they call them yods. This is kind of from the Kabbalah. So it's just like if you see in the tarot card, they sometimes have these little sort of like dots of energy coming down. We can just feel the same thing, all these in this golden light. There's all these different like little pieces of energy of those symbols coming into all sentient beings, helping them build the wisdom to realize emptiness here. And for ourselves, just like 3 needles of light come down, made out of energy, into our crown from Je Tsongkhapa, Japa Gyatso, and Kitruche. And again, golden light and nectar is filling our body with all those little symbols, those little yods or little wisdom symbols coming into us too. And again, just like you fill up a glass of mango juice, like a mango smoothie or orange juice, our body's shining sort of like an orangey gold. And just like beautiful sunlight all around us. So it's a purification of all of our self-grasping, self-cherishing suffering. But big thing is it's an empowerment. We're just kind of like charging our cell phone. We're kind of going up the level in a video game, whatever kind of analogy you want to use. All of our spiritual power is increasing here. In particular, wisdom. And we can sort of chant the big Same mantra here, a long mantra of Je Tsongkhapa. Igme se wei te chen chen re zi. Dri me kien bei wang po jam pel yan. Du pun ma lu jom se sang wei dai. Gan chen ke pe sun kien song ka pa. Lo Sandra Pe Shabla So Wade Make me say wait Chen Chen Razy Dream Ken Pe Wang Po Cham Pel Yang Du Pung Ma Lu Jom Se Sang Wei Dan Gan Chen Ke Pe Sun Ken Song Ka Pa Lo Sang Tra Pe Sha Bla So Wan De Make me say wait Te Chen Chen Rei Zi me Kien Bei Wang Po Jam Pao Yan Du Pun Ma Lu Chom Se Sang Wei Dan Gan Chen Ke Bei Sun Kien Song Kam Pa Lo San Tra Bei Sha Bla So Wan Ding. It's all beautiful energies coming down. Everything's shining gold. It's like everything's made out of golden light here. Now, when we look inside ourselves, we can see just at our heart level is a little about the size of a dime, a white 8 petaled lotus. And again, just make like it's almost made out of like a like wax, like something like that, just very sort of soft and pliable, just made out of energy. And on it is a white moon disc as well. So ready to do the dissolution here. Glorious and precious Root Guru, please come the lotus and moon seat in my crown. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Bestow upon me your blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious precious Root Guru, please ascend the lotus and moon seat in my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me and grant me the common supreme realizations. Glorious precious Root Guru, please remain in the lotus and moon seat in my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Please remain until I achieve the essence of enlightenment. So by reciting all that here and making the request, we can now see that sheet of Pure Land starts to melt into sort of a golden light, shimmering like a reflection on like a lake or water. And then it starts to dissolve. All sort of the buildings and beings and landscapes and so forth dissolve into Buddha Maitreya. And he becomes like a beautiful golden sun and it starts coming towards us, kind of like dissolving all the clouds until he dissolves into Je Tsongkhapa. You can feel that now Je Tsongkhapa, all the clouds are on him and his 2 students, Japa Gyatso and Kedrupche, they all melt, they sort of become little suns themselves and dissolve into Je Tsongkhapa. And then even his line throne, lotus, moon, sun seat, they all melt. And we just have Je Tsongkhapa just in the sky. Let's even dissolve him further so we can feel that he starts to dissolve from above and below into his heart, into Manjushri. So now we just have his true essence, the Buddha of wisdom, in the sky. And he's kind of like a little gold nugget there in the sky, and he starts to get really, really small, about the size of a small piece of corn or a sunflower seed, again made out of energy, and sort of drifts down to the top of our head, turns around, faces the same direction as us, and then slowly descends and enters our crown chakra and our central channel. It's made out of light, so he can do this, dissolve into us. And slowly but surely starts sort of descending just in front of our spine until he lands right in the middle of that moon disk. And the moment he does, we can just feel that the lotus closes. It's just like a little gao or amulet box at our heart. And 2 little mantras appear to seal it, again like you're tying a flower bulb with a thread. Top 1 clockwise is Manjushri's mantra, Umarapatsayani, and bottom 1 counterclockwise is Je Tsongkhapa's mantra, Om Guru Vajradhar Samadhikar Siddhi Om. So again, if you like, you can keep that out of your heart or even dissolve this into your heart. So it's just, again, like you're putting a big piece of butter on a hot frying pan and just sort of instantly melts. And again, Buddha wisdom, in wisdom realizing emptiness, is going straight into our mind, into our root mind, mixing with us. It's like the Dharmakaya mind of the Buddhists, the wisdom truth body of the Buddhists, which is always the omniscient mind meditating directly on emptiness, seeing it directly. That's going into our mind right now. So we can just feel we're receiving that blessing and realization. Just sit with that for a few minutes here. Okay, great, great spaciousness and peace. Okay, so just slowly coming out of meditation now. Just a short burst of meditating. I'm sort of flavoring the water, so to speak, of our class right now. Okay, so returning to the material here, the last little bit before we're done the course. Okay, a few little things I want to talk about here is, which is the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma from the Buddha, sort of being defined by the audience he was giving it to, or the disciples he was speaking to. So, of course, we have the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. We have Sarnath, we have Rajgir, and we finally have Vasali. So, first one being sort of more the Abhidharma presentation of emptiness, presentation of the Four Arya Truths, Four Noble Truths, and so forth. This being sort of the original sort of first teachings that Buddha gave after he became enlightened, right, at Sarnath. Then later on, he's presenting the more Mahayana tradition at Vulture's Peak, and in particular, he's at that point revealing the Prajnaparamita teachings and teachings on emptiness that way. So this is considered more the Madhyamika or middle way teachings. And then towards the end of his life as Vasali, he is teaching more sort of considered the mind-only school, which is sort of, they always say, like, if it's just Four Noble Truths, you know, things are impermanent, things exist are impermanent. Second turn of the wheel of Dharma, everything is empty. And in third wheel of Dharma, they always say, you get this sort of like little fortune cookie thing, mind is luminous, right? They'll end up saying that, which is sort of the more mind-only school, whereas you get him presenting the three aspects or three attributes or three kinds of existences. And so that's always the big question, is why is he teaching, as we've seen in this course, sort of three very, very different philosophies throughout his life. And then it's always a debate, is it sort of serially, is one replacing the other? How do they go together? Which one's right? The last one, the middle one, the first one? It depends who you talk to, so forth. But this little thing here I have from the Geshe Michael's class here, is that one way of seeing it is that he's, of course, speaking to, which Buddha always did. You know, he didn't write books or have university courses. He taught according to the people that came to see him. So he taught according to his audience at the time. So the first turn of the wheel of Dharma was designed for students who can understand the three attributes applied to the emptiness of a person. So in particular, at this level, what he's teaching is the emptiness of persons, the emptiness of self. So at this point, as you know, this is sort of the classic meditations on emptiness, where you examine the five skandhas and see that there's no self over and above that. When we look that, we don't, the sort of ego that we're all sort of used to, self-cherishing mind that we have based on self-grasping, once we actually look for this self amongst the five aggregates, we see that it's not there. And also then he taught at that same level the emptiness of phenomena. This is sort of the classic presentation you get in the Theravada school when we're looking at sort of form mindfulnesses and vipassana. We're looking at the emptiness of self, emptiness of objects or phenomena. Again, everything's changing, all different little particles and phenomena or dharmas. There is no self to any of these things. So that's the audience he's having there, his first five students and his first groups of people that are coming to see him. That's kind of the teachings, the first turn of the wheel of Dharma. Now, the second one is designed for students of sort of more Mahayana students who can understand the emptiness of objects. So in particular, that turn of the wheel of Dharma is when he's saying that nothing has inherent existence or exists from its own side or exists outside of a relationship to everything else. And so it's people that can understand that teaching. And then this is the thing where they say that the third turn of the wheel of Dharma is to make sure that people on the second level, or people that were there or people that might get teachings later, don't end up thinking that this is more of a nihilistic view of emptiness or nihilistic view of things. In other words, that everything is empty, nothing exists. You know, everything's just like the great void or whatever, and so nothing matters. There's no karma or any of these kinds of things. So in that case, at Vasali, Buddha sort of backs it up a little bit and gives you more of the mind-only teachings, right? Which is designed for students of the Mahayana who can't understand the second turn of the wheel of Dharma and need to hear this sort of third turning before they can go back and have more of an enriched understanding of the second turning of the wheel. So basically, it's how constructs don't exist by definition, whereas dependent things in emptiness do exist by definition. So again, what are the three goals of the third turning? So building on this a little bit, on the third turn of the wheel of Dharma, what did Buddha want by sort of teaching this final thing, kind of like a little bit of an appendix, or it's almost like the third turn of the wheel of Dharma, I almost feel it's just like a very long footnote for the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. So what did he want us by having this third turn of the wheel of Dharma? What did he want to sort of leave with us? One, he wanted us to learn not to take literally his two blanket statements. In other words, that everything exists by definition in the first turn of the wheel of Dharma, and then nothing exists by definition in the second turn of the wheel of Dharma. So in other words, it's very skillful, it's very wise. He's not wanting his students to take everything to extreme. You can sort of see that he's almost laying the groundwork for a middle way understanding of the teachings by doing that, by not sort of giving these black and white understandings of things. In other words, the first turning would be everything exists, everything is just dharmas, they're selfless, these things truly exist. Second turning, well, nothing exists, nothing's inherently existent. So it's all these kind of, he's worrying about all these people sort of taking these sort of extreme approaches. Well, we're going to do sort of have the third turn of the wheel of Dharma, have more of a nuanced understanding of this. And he wanted us to understand the nature of the three attributes. In particular, he wanted to understand what does it mean for something to be dependently arisen? What does it mean for something to exist ultimately in terms of the mind, right? Alaya Vijnana, storehouse consciousness. How do these two things interact? And in particular, sort of the mediating principle between them, words and concepts or constructs, that these don't exist by definition. So whereas dependently arisen things do exist and the mind exists, all these kind of words and concepts are sort of fictitious. That's kind of the main point, as you know, of the mind-only school or the third turn wheel of Dharma. And then says here, he wanted us to get a really good way to understand emptiness, that the construct about dependent things don't exist by definition, or the fact that separate seeds aren't producing an angry person in my mind that's upset. That's Geshe Michael's always gives that example. So in other words, the emptiness of an angry person is my mental image of them, which itself doesn't exist by definition. So in a lot of ways, what you get with that is, as I've said, the sort of deeper understanding of emptiness that you get, according to the mind-only school, is that objects and the mind come from the same karmic seed. So the sort of objects that we take, these sort of our conceptual image of things, are produced from a karmic seed, and sort of produces the mind seeing it, and the sort of object, I guess you could say, like the sort of fictitious object that's being engaged. So this is a really good way of understanding emptiness. So you can see that ultimately from the Madhyamika school, that will be sort of the view of karma and emptiness that we end up adopting. So why that's important is that, like I said, it gets us, this third turn of the wheel of Dharma gets us used to understanding how mental images work, how concepts work, and that we're always used to taking our judgments, our concepts, our words as being absolutely true, just like we take our opinions, our views to absolutely true, have nothing to any kind of relationship with ourselves, pausing them or anything like this. They're sort of like these holy objects, so to speak, that are unchanging, not produced by the mind. Whereas mind-only schools say, no, it's precisely the fact that these things are fictitious that allows us to get past them, that allows us not to suffer, that allows us to see that everything is the mind, and so we are responsible for it, which means we can change our mind, we can purify our mind, we can get enlightened. Things don't have to be the way that they appear. Why? Because they're coming from us. So this is the like I said, it's a huge switch over from, like, when you look at when you're studying tenet theory and the Sutrantical or logical sort of school, the Sutric school, it's always this idea of how does my concept map onto reality, right? And so it's this huge thing of, like, it's a representational issue. Is the only valid, in terms of what a valid mind is on that level, is your first initial contact with the reality that, you know, your representation sort of matches momentarily. And then as the object changes, your concept of it's no longer accurate. So that's like the sort of like lower schools of emptiness. That's a huge issue. Whereas mind-only school is just like, look, all of your views and concepts are fake or fictitious or non-representational. But the point is that they work, they're doing something. The point is they're coming from you. That's the most important take home. You're responsible for them. You are creating the world with your mind. And if that's the case, what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of experience do you want to have? They're your responsibility. And then once we go to the Madhyamika school, we'll see that we'll sort of cut out that split between world and concepts altogether. And that being the case allows us to move on to sort of a tantric view. Okay, so I sort of don't want to talk too much more than that. We'll have a little bit of time for questions here. So they, I guess I was gonna, the sort of next little section here is concocting according to Madhyamika. So what does it mean to sort of be ignorant according to the middle way school? That's the idea that you believe that things are inherently existing, the idea that they exist separate from your mind, labeling them, making images of them, right? We sort of know that from other classes that we've done. And whereas the two extremes are concocting according to the mind-only school, it says object comes from its own side with its own unique way of being its own identity. So believing constructs could have a nature of existence by definition, and two, dependent things in emptiness don't have a nature of existing by definition. So basically, again, just like I've said here, making a mistake or being ignorant, according to the mind-only school, is discounting or thinking that the world or your mind don't exist by definition, because they do, but thinking that your ideas, your concepts, or views do exist by definition. So in a lot of words, we have to sort of reverse that, our sort of regular ignorant way of looking at things. What's real is our mind, the objects of gazing. What's unreal is our interpretations, or our whole sort of mediation of our words and concepts. Those things we're responsible for, but we have to see that they're sort of a secondary, subsidiary thing, and they're not really real. Okay, so what I wanted to, the next class that I'll do sort of next week, I'll have to make a recording here, is I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we're going to transition into the middle way school from here. But what I wanted to say, just sort of leave everybody with, is the sort of interesting thing that happens at this point with the four schools of emptiness or tenet theory is we end up doing this, what they would say in sort of Freudian psychology, a counterintuitive reversal, which in other words, we end up seeing that the limitations of these views on emptiness, like let's say the lower schools or mind-only school, the problems or limits you run into are corrected not by trying to fix them, but basically turning the whole thing upside down, seeing that you've been coming at it the wrong way. Okay, that's what I think's really, really profound. And so what that does when you get to the middle way school, in particular Prasangika school, is you see that the answers to these problems, or how to understand emptiness, they're, because you have it backwards, once you sort of see it properly, it's extremely subtle, profound. It's a huge breakthrough experience, or a cutting through experience, and it's a lot easier. That's what's funny, is the middle way school is much easier to understand than the mind-only school, which has these three attributes, three kinds of reality, and understanding the relationship is difficult. So it's a classic psychoanalysis joke. It's actually not that funny, but I'll share it with you guys anyway, to sort of to show this. Because remember, what we're doing in the lower schools in emptiness, like the Abhidharma schools, these Trantika school, that sort of logical school, mind-only school, things exist by definition, dependently arisen. Things exist by definition, the mind exists by definition. What doesn't exist by definition are your words and concepts. So those things truly exist, objects in the mind, these are called ultimate truths, whereas conventional truths, in the sense that because they're conventional, just agreed upon, they're kind of fictitious, don't really exist. But you'll see that we'll see next week, there's all sorts of problems as we have limitations from that view. What we do at the Madhyamika school is we show that everything exists conventionally. So the mistake isn't that things truly exist and, what we're believing anything doesn't exist, that's the limitation, that conventional truths, don't really exist, whereas the things truly exist. We're trying to get to them, to ultimate truths. What we have to see is it's actually upside down, is that the problem is us taking things to be truly existing. We're sort of looking for a sort of this mythological creature that never existed in the first place. That's the problem. So it's not trying to get to true things. How do we go from sort of a false view to get out of that into a true thing, almost like a Kantian issue? How do we get from the phenomena to the noumenal, to things as they are in themselves? What we want to do is just see that search itself for quote unquote true independent things, existing inherently outside of your mind, that's the problem in the first place, right? So once we see that, it's kind of like untying a knot. All the problems start to fall away and resolve themselves by themselves. then we're left with the idea. What are we left with? We're left with words and concepts and imputations. And that's what's creating reality. And then we have power over that. Then we can make our choices according to that and create things karmically the way we want, right? I mean, this is sort of the take-home thing. So what I was going to say is the sort of joke is there's this joke, I have to sort of get it right, that it's at this factory and there's theft going on. So people, they're losing all this money, someone's stealing something. At the end of the day, oh my God, something's being stolen, we're losing all this money, but we don't know who's stealing. Then they find out, oh, it's this one guy. Everyone thinks that he's the thief. So we have to, his job is to take stuff around this wheelbarrow, move things around in the factory, like to deliver things, right? So at the end of the day, they figure, well, obviously what he's doing is he's stealing things as he's leaving for work. So let's put the security guards when he's leaving to make sure he's not stealing something, because we know he's the problem. So every day he's leaving and he's not taking anything. He's just, his wheelbarrow's empty and he's leaving the factory. He's just going home, his wheelbarrow or something like that. So day after day, they're just like, this doesn't make sense. We're losing money, but nothing's missing. Like something's missing, but we don't know what it is. And they keep thinking, well, what's this guy? We keep looking and we search him. Every he comes with his wheelbarrow and, we strip search him and feel him. It's like, okay, you can go home. And they're like, this doesn't make sense. Well, the joke is, what is he stealing? Wheelbarrows, right? So anyway, that's probably not that funny, but the point is, it's a similar thing when we have these reversals. In a lot of ways, the way we've been looking at emptiness up until we get to the Majjhimika school is the same way. We don't realize that the guy's been stealing the wheelbarrows, that it's looking for things existing by definition, rather than that's the solution we want. That's the problem we have from the first place. So that's what I like once we get to the middle way school, is the mind-only school allows you to see this. That's why it's such an important thing to study. It sets everything up so you can cut through it. And this is what Je Tsongkhapa's sort of masterstroke is in his book. It's sort of if you look at in the Rimé tradition of Tibetan Buddhism in the 19th century, some different thinkers there would say, oh, Je Tsongkhapa is too extreme. What we need is more of a nuanced mind-only school, which allows us to practice Madhyamika and Dzogchen. He's one of these Prasangika guys where like everything is empty. He's just cutting everything apart. So it's like quote-unquote, two of an extreme view. But Je Tsongkhapa wants to get us to get, and you'll see why in the next course, to get to this level where we let go of everything. And he says it's the mind-only school that when you move it along, you see how it self-destructs and we're left with this absence. And that's a really important conclusion to come to. So it's not about fixing up the mind-only school. It's to see how it comes undone by itself. And then we move into the Prasangika school and we're left with this certain view of emptiness called sort of the non-affirming negative view, that we're just left with the absence of inherent existence. And this is precisely where we want to be to do Tantra and self-liberate. Okay, so I hope that's okay and clear for today. Exactly. And I hope it wasn't too, as always, too confusing there. Before we go, does anyone have little any question? I want to keep it to time here so we don't go over. I always try and keep it to around an hour. Any question or comment? We're going to have a review session at the end of this course when I get back in September here. So we'll have a chance to ask a little bit more questions. I know this is kind of like a little bit more of an intellectual course, but any comments or questions?
Matthew, I don't have any questions. I just love how this is going. It's I have never had to engage with thinking like this, at this level. And every time we have a class, I feel like I'm getting a little closer. So I'm just wanting to thank you for how you're teaching it, and the detail of it is just incredible, and keep doing it.
Well, thank you. As I will, as I always say, refer everyone to Lama Ben's course, because he's a lot more, when you sort of, whatever, like when you watch yourself on camera, just like when you, like, they have all these funny jokes of what you look like with when you do the self-checkout thing at Walmart and they show the picture and you're like, oh my God, do I look like that? I look terrible. When I actually listen to myself teaching, I just realize what a dog's breakfast it usually is. But Lama Ben's course on this is very, very good. And the way he teaches is excellent. So I do always refer to him. But if this is helping Marcia, I'm really, really happy. And we'll see, because if we end up, like saying, studying Tantra together, something else, all this intellectual stuff will have a very important cash out at the end of it. That's the most important thing. This isn't kind of like a dead end of us just sitting around talking philosophy.
Yeah.
Having this view of emptiness is so important, because you won't then, when you're doing retreat, like I say, you're doing your tantric practice, you won't have any more doubts or confusions. It really sort of unties these knots. So there we go. Okay, so we'll leave it at, thank you so much for coming on a Saturday morning. Have a lovely end of the weekend here. And I'm off to work for about 2 weeks or so. So I'll record some classes then and just try and finish up the course. So when I come back end of August, beginning of September, we can have a review and finish this up. So, okay, let me just stop recording here. Thank you so much.